Hope you're doing well. Just put my headset down. Actually, how dumbass, I may have started the stream, but I did not grab water before. I've actually not drunk any water yet today, so let me actually maybe quickly edit this text on this and then just walk off real quick already. One sec. Oh, right, there we go. Got some water now. Maybe I should have thought about that before. I mean, that's kind of alright. Just change that text back to be right back. Gonna see, I did save that, yeah, I did. So I hope I can finish that book today. I will have to be off in about 3 hours-ish. For dinner, but it's a pretty shortish book, so I should maybe be able to make it. Let me see. Discord's already got a message. That's good, that's good. Let's send that not that long ago. We're only been live for 3 minutes. That's alright. So, I was looking at reading Voodoo Planet by Norton today, which is Norton is kind of spacey sci-fi, but then this one is apparently kind of magic-y as well. 2 shamans or the likes, apparently. Let me maybe just head into the book command, a little description of that. Hello, Sander Formo, how do you do, how do you do? Good day, good day. Hope you're well. How have you been? It's been a bit. Let's see. It is kind of in the middle of a series apparently, but I'm doing good, I'm doing good. I've got a day of work, so pretty chill day today. see, just updating the book command real quick. So a little bit of a description, link still in there. That's good, that's good. Looks good. Hello, Princess Paisley. How do you do? Hope you're well. Good day, good day. That's good. Glad to hear it, glad to hear it. I don't really have much for tapping wise, Sander. Sorry about that. I'd probably have to switch my covers. May not have to per se, but I don't know. Hello, Miss. How are ya? How are ya? Hope you're well. How's that subathon going? Been lurking a bit after doing chores. Well, actually not gotten that much time on the clock. But the max cap is still 4 hours away, right? I want to be off in 3 hours, so I'm just gonna have to make sure that she's still on my run. That sort of people can arrange that. Here is you. Oh, nice, Miss. Nice. Time to relax and after work. Hope it wasn't too stressful a day. And hello, Carno. How do you do? Hope you're well. Let me see. This book kinda just jumped in, no forward, no anything. It is kind of in the middle of a series as well, I think. I was like, this book is nice and short and I can hopefully finish it today. Just in one smooth 3-hour stream or so. But I'll have to see. It's kind of good weather here. Okay. Wanted to try and quickly mute that, but it never on. What was about to say, it's kind of like good weather here, sunny and stuff, so it's a good chance that some bikes driving on by being loud because they want to destroy their onions. Lovely. Alright, guess I can ramble for another minute and maybe start the book at 10 minutes in. So technically if I were to actually take the time for that, I could take 10 minutes and cut it off from there for the YouTube. Yeah, I'm not gonna be taking the time for that probably, knowing me. But oh well, that's alright. Alright, let me just jump into them at 10 minutes in. For those who didn't hear me talk about it earlier, gonna have a look at Voodoo Planet by Norton. For a while it was then published under her pen name Andrew North. And there's no forward or anything, so let's just jump straight into chapter 1. Talk of heat or better not than Saco. This waterlogged world combined all the most unattractive features of a steam bath and one could only dream of coolness, greenness, more land than a stingy string of islands. The young man on the promontory above the crash of the waves wore the winker cap of a spaceman with the insignia of a cargo master, and not much else save a pair of very short shorts. He wiped one hand absently across his bare chest and brought it away, damp as he studied. Through protective sungwalls, the treacherous promise of the bright sea. One could swim if he wanted to lose most of his skin. There were minute organisms in that liquid that smacked their lips if they had lips, every time they thought at Taran. Then Thorson licked his own lips, tasting salt, and plodded back through the sand of the spaceport to the birth of the Solar Queen. This had been a long day, or one with more snarl lips than he cared to count, keeping him on a constant dogged trot between the ship and the fitting yard, where riggers laboured with the slowest motions possible through the human body, or so it seemed to the exasperated acting cargo master of the free trailer. Captain Jellicoe had long ago taken refuge in his cabin to preserve the remnants of his temper. Dane had been allowed no such escape. The Queen had a schedule for refitting the surface and mill ship, and the time alone did not allow for immediately playing the devil with the innards of a robot feathers. She had to be ready to lift on the combined ship, now plying that runs had down and formally signed off in her favour. Luckily most of the work was done, and Dane had given a last search and inspection before signing the rig's book and reporting to his captain. The air-conditioned interior of the Queen comforted him as he climbed to his quarters. Ship air was flat, chemically pure but unappetizing stuff. Today it was a relief to breathe. Dane went under a bather. At least there was no lack of water, but the local skinners filled it out. 'Twas chill but relaxing on his gaunt young body. He was sailing on his latest tunic when the ram buzzer sounded. A visitor, oh, not a supervisor again. Dane went to answer with dragging feet, for the crew of the Queen at the moment numbered exactly 4 with himself, for General errand boy. Captain Jellicoe was in his quarters 2 levels above. Medic Tow was presumably overhauling his supplies, and Sinbad, ship's cat, asleep in some empty cabin. Dane jerked his tunic into place, very much on his guard as he came to the head of the ramp, but was not the supervisor. Dane, thoroughly used to unusual appearing strangers, both human and alien, was impressed by this visitor. He was tall, this quiet man, his great height ascended by a fit leanness and a narrowness of waist and hip, a length of leg and arm. His main article of clothing was the universal shorts of the Saco settler, but being fashioned of saffron yellow, they were the more brilliant because of his darkness of skin, for he was not the warm brown of the Terrans Dane had surfed beside, though he shared their general features. His flesh was really out there, an almost bluish sheen. Instead of shirt or tunic, his deep chest was crossed by 2 white straps, the big medallion marking their intersection, giving forth flashes of gem fire when he breathed. He wore in his belt the standard stun gun of a spaceman, but a weapon which resembled the more deadly patrol blaster, as well as a long knife housed in a jeweled and fringed sheath. To the eye he was an example of barbaric force tamed and trimmed to civilized efficiency. He saluted palm out and spoke electric basic with only a suggestion of accent. I am Kortasaki. I believe Captain Yalago expects me. Yes, sir, Dane snapped to attention. So this was the chief ranger from fabulous Kafka, Sago's sister planet. The older ascended a cat leather easily, missing no detail. Over a ship's interior as he passed, his expression was still one of the polite, interest as a guy in the wrapper on the panel door of Jellicoe's cabin, and the horrible screech from Queeks, the captain's pet who-bat, drowned out any immediate answer. Then followed an automatic thump on the floor. Over a blue feathered crab parrot toad's cage, announcing that its master was in residence. Since the captain's cordial welcome extended only to his guest, Dane regretfully ascended to the mess cabin to make unskilled preparations for supper. Though there was not much you could do to foul up concentrates in an automated cooker. Oh, hello, Harry Heartless. How do you do? Thank you so much for the lovely array. How was your stream? Hope it went well. And for anyone just coming in, I'm actually just drop that behind for thought I added a small description to that. Hold on, that is the right book to open. That's weird, I should have a small description. Anyway. Let me also give a little shout out for the lovely Harry Heartless. Thank you so much for the raid. Hope your stream went well. Hope Resident Evil was fun. And hello Tiger Gamer and Star and Donarella made chocolate. Hope you're well. Good day, good day. Let me see. We're just getting started in the book. I'm not sure where the book command doesn't want to update. But basically, it's a book in a little space fantasy series. And well, it's called Voodoo Planet, something that basically gives a bit of an idea. Oh, thank you, Ray, thank you. And hello, Fox, how do you do, From a quick break anyways, there you go. If you're looking for more lovely ASMR artists to follow, go check out the lovely Fox and the Raven as well. Thank you all so much. Hope you're all having a lovely day. and I'm legally obligated to have a lovely day today. It's the king's birthday, so I'm kind of not allowed to have a bad day, but no, I'm not doing well. Let me see, we're just basically just getting started in the book. Let me just go back in. Since the captain's cordial welcome extended only to his guest, Dean regretfully descended in his cabin to make unskilled preparations for supper. Though there was not much you could do to follow up concentrate in an automatic cooker. Company Tao sat beyond the cooking unit, nourishing a mug of Terran coffee. And do you have to serve music with meals, especially that particular selection? Dane Flush stopped whistling in mid-note. Terra-bound was old and pretty well worn out. He didn't know why he always unconsciously sounded off for that. The chief ranger from Kafka just came on board. He reported carefully offhand as he busied himself reading labels. He knew better than to serve fish or any of its derivatives in disguising him. Kafka Tau set up straighter. Now there's a planet worth visiting. Not on a free trailer's pay, coming in. Well, you can always hope to make a big strike, boy, but what I wouldn't give for a lift ship for that. Why, you're no hunter. How come you want the Indians for that port? Oh, I don't care about the game preserves. They're worth seeing too. Just the people themselves. But they're Terran settlers, or at least from Terran stock, aren't they? Oh, sure. Tau said this coffee slow, but there are settlers and settlers some, and a lot depends upon when they left Terra and why they were, also what happened to them after they landed out there. And Kafkans are really special. Well, they have an amazing history. The colony was founded by escaped prisoners, and just one stock. They took off from Earth close to the end of the Second Atomic War. That was a race war, remember, which made it doubly ugly. Tau's mouth twisted in disgust. As if the colour of a man's skin makes any difference in what lies under it. One side in that lineup tried to take over Africa, herded most of the natives into a giant camp, and slaughtered them on grand scale, but they were cracked themselves hard and heavy. During the confusion, some survivor in the camp staged a revolt held by the enemy. They captured an experienced mental station hidden in the center of the camp and made a break into space, in 2 ships where had been built there. That voyage must have been a nightmare, but they were desperate. Somehow they made it out here to be there. Out here to the rim and sat down on Kafka, without power enough to take off again, and by then most of them were dead. So Tao explained. Let me quickly read that. Sorry, the book isn't really giving me much of a break. The conversation goes on though, so. Oh, thank you, Fox, thank you. I'm glad you like it. Sleep well, sleep well. Hope you enjoy. But we humans, no matter what our race, are a tough breed. The refugees discovered that climatically their new world was not too different from Africa. A lucky change which might happen only once in 1,000 times. So they thrived in the handful who survived. But the white ignitions they had kidnapped to run the ships, they didn't. For they set up a collar bar in their furs. The lighter their skin, the lower you were on the social scale, but a kind of breeding selectively. The present Cathkins are very dark indeed. So thou went on. And he went on, talking a little bit about a Cathkin history. So that's just me giving a little break on the panning to the left there. They referred it as a primitive for survival, and about 200 years ago, long before the first survey scout discovered them, something happened. Either the parent raised mutated, or sometimes occurs, a line of people of superior gifts emerged. Within a few isolated births, but with surprising regularity, in 5 family clans. There was a short period of power struggle, until they realized the foolishness of civil war, and formed an oligarchy, having a loose tribal organization, with the 5 families to push and lead a new civilization developed, that when survey came to call, they were no longer as they were before. Combine bought the trade rights about 75 years ago, then the company and the 5 families got together and marketed a luxury item to the galaxy. You know how every super and big shot on 25 planets wants to say he's Hunter on Kafka, and if he can point out a Garasat on his wall or a tilted bracelet, he's able to strut with the best. To holiday on Kafka is both fabulous and fashionable, and very, very profitable for the natives and for Combine who sells transportation to the travelers. But I've heard they have poachers too, Dane remarked. Well, yes, that naturally follows. You know what a glam skin brings on the market. Wherever you have regionally controlled export, you're going to have poachers and smugglers, but the patrol doesn't go to Kafka. The natives handle their own criminals. Personally, I cheerfully take a 99-year sentence in the lunar mines, in place of what a Kafkan to dish out to a poacher dinner. So that the rumour has spread satisfactorily. Coffee slopped over the brim of Tower Muck, and Dane dropped a packet of steak concentrate he was about to feed into the cooker. Chief Ranger Asaki loomed in the doorway of the mess, as suddenly as if he had been teleported to that point. And hello, Blue James, how do you do, hope you're well. Good day. How have you been lately? As far as me goes, I am doing well, thank you. Got a lovely little day off, since it's the King's birthday here in the Netherlands. Don't worry. The America rose to his feet and smiled politely at the visitor. Do I detect an observation, sir? The suggestion that the tales I have heard were deliberately set to blast what I would do the most good as deterrent. A fleeting grin broke the impassive somberness of the face. I was informed you are a man skilled in magic. Merrick, you certainly displayed a traditional sorcerer's quickness of wit, but this rumour is also true. The quirk of good humour had gone again, and there was an etch in the chief ranger's voice which cut. Poachers on Kafka would welcome the patrol and please with the attention they now received. He came into the mess cabin, Jellicoe behind him, and Dane pulled down two of the snap seats. He was holding a mug under the spout of the coffee dispenser, as the captain made instructions. Thorson, our acting cargo master. Thorson, the Cathkin acknowledged with a grave nod of his hat, and then glanced down to floor level with a look of surprise, weaving a pattern about his legs, purring loudly. Sinbad was offering an unusually fervent welcome of his own. The ranger went down on one knee, his hand out for Sinbad's inquiring sniff. Then the cat buried the dark palm, buried at it playfully, with claw-sheathed paw. A Terran cat. It is of the lion family. Well, far removed, Jellicoe replied. You'd have to add a little bow through Sinbad to promote him to the lion class. We have only the old tail, Sasaki sounded almost wistful as the cat jumped through his knee and clawed for a hold on his chest belt. But I do not believe that lions were ever so friendly toward my ancestors. Dane would have removed the cat, but the Cathkin arose with Sinbad still purring loudly, resting in the crook of his arm. The ranger was smiling with a gentleness which changed the whole arrogant cast of his countenance. Do not bring this one to Cathca with you, Captain, for we will never take him away again. Those who dwell in the inner court do not let him vanish from their sight. Ah, so this pleases you, small lion. He rubbed Sinbad gently under the throat, and the cat stretched his neck, his yellow eyes half closed in bliss. Thorson, the captain turned to Dane. The arrival report on my desk was the final one from Combine. Yes, sir, there's no hope of the rover sitting down here before that date. And the Saki sat back down, still holding the cat. So you see, Captain, fortune has arranged it all. You have 2 tens of days, 4 days to go on my cruiser, 4 days for your return here, and the rest to explore the preserve. We could not ask for better luck, for I do not know when our paths may cross again. In the normal course of events, I will not have another mission to Sacco for a year, perhaps longer. Also, he hesitated and then spoke to Tao. Merrick, Captain Jellicoe has informed me that you have made a study of magic on many worlds. That is so indeed, sir. Do you then believe that it is a real force, or that it is only a superstition for child people who set up demons to haul partitions through one's own darkness falls upon them? Well, some other magic I have seen is trickery, some of it founded upon an inner knowledge of men and their ways, which is through the witch doctor can use to his advantage. There always remains, Tao put down his mug. There always remains a small residue of happenings, and the results for which we have not yet found any logical explanation. And I believe, Asaki interrupted, It is also true that a race can be conditioned from birth to be sensitive to forms of magic, so that men of that blood are particularly susceptible. That was more of a statement than a question, but Tao answered it. That is very true. A Lemurian, for example, can be sung to death. I have witnessed such a case, whereupon a Terran or another of war man the same suggestion would have no effect. Those who thought Cathcam brought such magic with them. The chief ranger's fingers still moved about Sinbad's jaw and throat soothingly, but his tone was chill, the coldest thing in the cramped space of the mess cabin. Yes, a highly developed form of it, Tao agreed. More highly developed, perhaps, than ever you can believe, Merrick. That came in a hiss of cold rage. I think that its present manifestation, death by a beast that is not a beast, could be worth your detailed study. But why? Tao came bluntly to the point. Because it is a killing magic and is being carefully used to rid my world of key men. Men we need badly. If there is a weak point in this cloudy attack shaping against us, we must learn it, and soon. Here was Jellicoe and the rest. We are invited to visit Cathcart and survey a new hunting range, as Chief Ranger Asaki's personal term guest. Dame drew a deep breath of wonder. Guest rides on Cathcart were jealousy guarded. They were too valuable to their owners to waste. Whole families live from the income from the yearly rental of even half one, but the rangers by right office had several which they could grant to visiting scientists or men from other worlds, or in positions similar to their own. To have such an opportunity offered to an ordinary trader was almost incredible. His wonder was matched by Tao's and must have been plain to read, for the Chief Ranger smiled. For a long time, Captain Jellicoe and I have exchanged biological data on alien life forms. His skill in photographing such, his knowledge as a xenobiologist are widely recognized, and so I have permission for him to visit the news of Borough Preserve, not yet officially opened. And you, Merrick Tao, your help to release your diagnosis, we need another direction. So one expert comes openly, another not so openly, though, Merrick, your task is approved by my superior's hand. He glanced at Dane. Perhaps tomorrow on the trail for the suspicious, shall we not ask this young man also? Dane's eyes went to the captain. Jellicoe was always fair, and his crew would have snapped into action on his word alone, even if they were fronting a rain of Thorkin death darts, and his order was to advance. But on the other hand, Dane would never have asked a favour, and the best he hoped for was to be able to perform his duties without unfavourable comment upon their commission. He had no reason to believe Jellicoe was willing to agree to this. You have 2 weeks planetside leave coming Thursday. If you want this, or wait. You have 2 weeks as planetside leave coming Thursday. If you want to spend it on Cathcart. Jellicoe actually grinned then. I take it that you do. When do we ship up, sir? You said that you must wait for the return of your other crew members. Shall we say mid-afternoon tomorrow? The chief ranger stood up and put Sindbad down, though the cat protested with several sharp meows. Small Lion, the tall Cathkin spoke through the cat as to an equal. This is your jungle, and mine lies elsewhere. But should you ever grow tired of traveling the stars, there's always a home for you in my core. When the chief ranger went out the door, Sinbad did not try to follow, but he uttered one mournful little cry of protest and loss. So he wants a troubleshooter, does he? Thou asked. All right, I'll try to hunt out his goblins for him. Here we were at the first Kafka. Then, remembering the hot glare of the Saco spaceport, the sea one could not swim in, contrasted that with the tidies he had seen of the green hunter's paradise on the next planet of the system. Yes, sir, he echoed, and made a haphazard choice for the cooker. Don't be too light-hearted, thou warned. I'll say that any stew, it was too hot for the ranger to handle, might give us burned fingers. And quick, when we land on Kafka, walk softly and look over your shoulder, and be prepared for the world. Do right, oh. That was chapter 1. Let's see, there was about 30 minutes just trying to get a bit of a grasp of how I'm doing time-wise. Probably doing alright. Let me jump into chapter 2 in a sec. I'll take a little bit of a break. Have a little bit of a look through the book. Get an idea of how high chances are that I can finish it in the stream today as I've been wanting to. Let me see. That might actually be a rough one. There is a short book, but it's still pretty long. Well, we'll have to see. So you can hear my cat there, can't you? I'm not sure what that sounds like, the war cries of a cat who's caught a mouse. Although I thought she'd been done hunting. Got a little suspicious tissue. How are you doing? Hope you're well. Good day, good day. If she keeps causing a ruckus, I'll have to have a quick look downstairs to see what's up. She's quieted down, so I think we might be alright. Hello, Pomo, how do you do, how do you do? Alright, let me jump into chapter 2. Interesting book so far. But honestly, the space sci-fi world of Norton is pretty interesting in its own, anyway. Nice, nice, suspicious. I've been well. Not much too new. Well, something exciting, but it'll take some time before it's here. So. I don't know. But yeah, let me jump into chapter 2. Lightning played along the black ridges above him, and below was a sheer drop to the river, which was only a silver thread. Under our boots man-made, and yet dominating the wilderness of jungle and mountain, was a platform of rock slabs, fused to support a palace of towering yellow-white walls and curved cups of domes. A palace was also a half-fortress, half-frontier post. Dane set his hands on the parapet of the river drop, blinked as a lightning bolt cracked in the sky-splitting glare of violet fire. This was about as far from the steaming highlands of Sago as a man could imagine. The demon Gra prepared for battle as Saki nodded toward a distant crackling. Captain Jellicoe laughed. Supposed to be whetting their tusks, I wouldn't care to meet a Gra that could produce such a display by mere tusk whetting. No, but think of the reward for the tracker who discovers where such go or die. To find the graveyard of the Gra herd would make any man wealthy beyond dreams. How much truth is there in that legend, thou asked? The chief ranger shrugged. Well, who can say? This much is true. I have served my life in the forest since I could walk. I've listened to the talk of trackers, hunters, rangers, in my father's courtyards and field camps, since I could understand their words. Yet never has any man reported the finding of a body of a Gra that died a natural death. The scavengers might well account for the bulk of flesh, but the tusks and the bones should be visible for years, and this too I have seen with my own eyes. A Gra close to death, supported by two of their kind, and being urged along to the big swamps. Perhaps it is only that a suffering animal longs for water at its end, or perhaps any heart for the morale there does lie in a Gra graveyard. But no man has found it naturally dead Gra, nor has any returned from exploring the big swamps. Lightning on peaks which were like polished jet, bare up above, the lush overgrowth of jungle below and between, this fortress held by men who dared both the heights and the depths. The wildly burgeoning life of Cathcart had surrounded the off-worlder since they had come here. There was something untamable about Cathcart. The lush planet lured and yet repelled at the same time. So Voodoo far from here. The chief ranger pointed north in answer to the captain's question. About 100 leagues, this is the first new preserve we have prepared in 10 years, and it is our desire to make it the best for tried hunters. That is why we are now operating taming teams. Taming teams, Dane had to ask. The chief ranger was ready enough to discuss his project. So Voodoo is a no-kill preserve. The animals, they come to learn that after a while, but we cannot wait several years until they do, so we make them gifts. He laughed, evidently recalling some incident. Sometimes, perhaps, we are too eager. Most of our visitors who wish to make tridents and to picture me game Graham the Rockets lion. Lions I ordain, not Terran lions, no, but my people when they landed in Kafka found a few animals that remind them of those they had always known, so they gave those the same name. The Kafkan lion is fur, it is a hunter and a great fighter, but it's not the cat of Terra. However, it is in great demand as a triedy actor, so we summon it out of lurking, for fighting free mules. One shoots a poley, a water rat or a land deer, and drags the carcass behind a low-flying feather. The lion springs upon the moving meat, but it can also scent, and the rope is cut, leaving a free dinner. And the lions are not stupid. In a very short time they connect the sound of a feather cut in the air with food. So they come to the banquet, and those on the feather can take their 3D shots at ease. Only there must also be care taken in such training. One forest guard on the comb of preserve became too enterprising. He dragged his skill at first, and to see if he could get the lions to forget man's presence entirely, he hung the training carcasses in feather, encouraging them to jump for their food. And so the reindeer continued. For the guard that was safe enough, but it worked too well. A month or so later a hunter was escorting a client through Comock, and they swung low to get a good picture of a water rat emerging from the river. Suddenly there was a snarl behind them, and they found themselves sharing the floor with a lioness annoyed at finding no meat waiting on board. Luckily they both wore Stas belts, but they had to lend the feather and leave until the lioness wandered off, and she seriously damaged the machine in her irritation, so now her guards play no more fancy tricks while on taming runs. Tomorrow, no, he corrected himself. The day after tomorrow I will be able to show you how the process works. And tomorrow, inquired the captain. Tomorrow my men make hunting magic. The Saki's voice was expressionless. Your chief witch doctor being, questioned Tao. Lumbrilo, the chief ranger, did not appear disposed to add to that, but Tao pursued the subject. His office is hereditary. Yes, does that make any difference? For the first time there was a current of repressed eagerness in the other's tone. Perhaps a vast amount of difference, Tao replied. A hereditary office may carry with it two forms of conditioning. One to influence its holder, one to affect the public at large. For Lumbrilo may have come to believe deeply in his own powers. He would be a very remarkable man if he did not. It is almost certain that your people unquestionably accept him as a worker of wonder. They do so accept her. Once more, Saki's voice was drained of life. And Lumbrilo does not accept something you believe necessary. Again the truth, Medic. Lumbrilo does not accept his proper place in the scheme of things. He is a member of one of your 5 families. Oh no, his clan is small, always set apart. From the beginning he heard those who spoke for gods and demons did not also were men. Separation of church and state, commented Tao thoughtfully. Yet in our Terran past there have been times when church and state were one. Does Lumbrilo desire that? The Saki raised his eyes to the mountain peaks, to the northward where lay his beloved work. I do not know what Lumbrilo wants, save that it makes mischief or worse. This I tell you, hunting magic is part of our lives, that it has its core some rules and explainable happenings, which you have acknowledged do exist. I have used power I can neither explain nor understand as part of my work. In the jungle and the grasslands, an old warrior must guard his life, where it stands belled if he goes unarmed. But I, any of my men, can walk unharmed if we obey the rules of magic. Only Lumbrilo does other things which his forefather did not, and he boasts that he can do more. So he has a growing following of those who believe and those who fear. And you want me to face him? The chief ranger's big hands closed upon the rim of the parapet, as if they could exert enough pressure to crumble the hard stone. I want you to see whether there's trickery in this. Trickery I can fight, for that there are weapons. But if Lumbrilo truly controls forces, for which there is no name, then perhaps we must patch up at an easy peace, or go down in defeat. And of water, I come from a line of warriors. We do not drink defeat easily. That I also believe, Tower returned quietly. Be sure, sir, there is trickery in this man's magic, that I can detect it, the secret shall be yours. Let us hope so that it shall be. And hello, Pepillo, how do you do? Hope you're doing well. Subconsciously Dane had always associated the practice of magic with darkness and the night, but the next morning the sun was high and hot, but he made one of the party coming down through a second larger walled terrace where the hunters, trackers, guards and other followers of the chief ranger were assembled in irregular rows. There was a low sound which was more a thrum in the clear air about them, getting into a man's blood and pumping in the rhythm there. Dane tracked the sound to its source, 4 large drums standing waist high before the men who tapped them, delicately with the tips of all 10 fingers. The necklace of claws and teeth about those dusky throats, the kilts of fringed hide, the crossed belts of brilliantly spotted or striped fur, were in contrast to the very efficient and modern sidearms each man wore, to the rest of the equipment sheathed and strapped at their belt. There was a carved stool for the chief ranger, another for Captain Jellicoe. Dane and Tau settled themselves on a less comfortable seat on the terrace steps. Those stepping fingers increased their rate of beat, and the notes of the drums rose from the low murmur of hive bees to the mother of mountain thunder, still half a range away. A bird called from those inner courts of the palace, from which the women never ventured. Da, 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 voices took up the thud of the drums. The heads of the squatting men moved in a slow swing from side to side. Tau Tow's hand closed about Dane's wrist, and the younger man looked around, startled to see that the medic's eyes were alight, that he was watching the assembly with the alertness of Sinbad approaching prey. Calculate the stowage page in number 1 hole. That amazing order delivered in a whisper shocked Dane into obeying it. Number 1 hole, there were 3 deficients now, and the stowage was. He became aware that for a small space of time he had escaped in that being woven by the beat of the drum, the drone of voices, the nodding of heads. He moistened his lips, so that was how it worked. He had heard Tao speak of 10 or of about self-hypnotism under such conditions, but this was the first time the meaning of it had been clear. 2 men were shoveling out of nowhere, wearing nothing on their dark bodies but calf-length skills of tails, black tails, with fluffy white tips, which swayed uniformly in time to their pacing feet. Their heads and shoulders were masked by beautifully cured and semi-mounted animal heads, displaying half-open jaws with double pairs of curved fangs. Their black and white striped fur, the sharply pointed hairs, were neither canine nor feline, but a weird combination of the 2. Dane gabbled 2 training formulas under his breath, and tried to think of the relation of cementine rock coinage through the galactic credits. Only this time his defenses did not work. From between the 2 shuffling dancers spattered something on 4 feet. The canine feline creature was more than just a head. It was a loose-limbed, graceful body, fully 8 feet in length, and the red eyes in the prick-eared head were those of a confident killer. It walked without restraint, lazily with arrogance, its white tufted tail swinging, and when it reached the midpoint of the terrace, it flung up its head as if to challenge, but words issued from between those curved fangs, words which Dane might not understand, but which undoubtedly held meaning for the men nodding in time to the hypnotic cadence of that drum. Beautiful, Tao spoke in honest admiration. His own eyes almost as feral as those of the talking beast as he leaned forward, his fists on his knee. And hello, respect, thank you for the follow, beautiful. The animal was dancing also, its paws following the pace set by the masked attendants. It must be a man in an animal skin, but Dane could hardly believe it. The illusion was too perfect. His own hands went to the knife sheath at his belt. Out of the ferns, the local custom, they had left their stun rods in the palace, but a belt knife was an accepted article of apparel. Dane slid the blade out surreptitiously, setting its point against the palm of his hand and jabbing painfully. This was another of Tao's answers for breaking a spell. But a white and black creature continued to dance. There was no blurring of its body lines into those of a human being. It sang on in a high-pitched voice, and they noted that those of the audience nearest the tools were a sake, and the captain was seated now, with the chief ranger and the space officer. He felt how tense beside him. And hello, Sir Ruff Ruff. Thank you so much for the resub. How have you been? How have you been? Hope you're well. And Norton. I mean, just because I want to do a birdie mod spin for that. It's a watermelon anyway, so not a bad choice. Hope you've been well, Sir Ruff. Glad to see you. Good day. Oh, right, you must have fallen asleep real early then. If you're wide awake now. Hope you don't mess up the sleep schedule too much. I'm gonna try and keep the schedule in check a little bit. Trouble coming. The warning from Tao was the merest threat of sound. Dane forced himself to look away from the swaying cat dog, to watch instead the singers who were now furtively eyeing their lord and his guest. The Terran knew that there were feudal bonds between the ranger and his men, but suppose it was a showdown between Lumbrilo and the Saki. Whose side would these men take? And yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. Just been having a hard time finding motivation to stream. Or life, and not life as early as I wanted to be today, to be very honest. But you know what, it's gonna be life for as long as I can now. It's probably going to be till dinner in about 2 hours. So that's a little bit at least. I wanted to do more today than 3 hours, but yeah. I don't know. Just been a bit rough on that front, but we're here now, so that's something. He then watched Caprangelico's hand slide across his knee, his fingers drop in touching distance of his knife hilt, and the hand of the chief ranger hanging legs at his side suddenly bore into a fist. So, Tao expelled the word as a hiss. He moved with sure-footed speed. Now he paused between the stools to confront the dancing cat dog. Yet he did not look at the weird creature and its attendants. Instead his arms were flung high as if to ward off or perhaps welcome something on the mountainside as he shouted, "Hoorie, Aldama, hoorie." As one those on the terrace turned, looked up toward the slope, Dane was on his feet, holding his knife as he might a sword. Though what a usage puny length would be against a huge bulk, moving in slow majesty toward them, he did not try to think. That'll do, witch's hour. Thank you for the follow. Grey dark trunk crawled upward between great ivory tusks. Ears went wide as ponderous feet crunched volcanic soil. Tao moved forward, his hand still upraised, clearly in greeting. The trunk touched skyward as a salute to the man who could be crushed under one foot. Hoorie, Aldama. For a second time, Tao held the monster elephant and the trunk raised in silent greeting from one lord of an earth to another he recognized as an equal. Perhaps it had been 1,000 years since man and elephant had stood so, and then there had been only war and death between them. Now there was peace and a current of power flowing from one to the other. Dane sensed this, saw the men on the terrace likewise, drawing back from the unseen tie between the medic and the bull he had so clearly summoned. Then Tao's upheld hands came together in a sharp clap, and men held their breath in wonder. Where the great bull had stood there was nothing except the rocks and the sun. As Tao swung around to face the cat dog, that creature had no substance either, for he fronted no animal but a man, a small lean man whose lips wrinkled back from his teeth in a snarl. His attendant priest fell back, leaving the spaceman and the witch doctor alone. Lumbrelo's magic is great, Tao said evenly. I hail Lumbrelo of Cathcar. His hand made the open palm salute of peace. The snarl faded as the man brought his face under control. He stood naked, but he was clothed in inherent dignity. And there was power within dignity. Power and the pride before which even the more physically impressive chief ranger might have to give place. And hello, Haro, how are ya, hope you're well. Good day, good day. You have magic also, Outlander, he replied. Where walks this long-toothed shadow of yours now? Where once the men of Cathcar walked, Lumbrelo, for those men of your blood too long past under the shadow of mine, and made its body their prey. So that it now might have a blood-depth shadow with us, Outlander. That you said, nor I, man of power. You have shown us one beast, I have shown another. Who can say which of them is stronger when it issues forth from the shadow? Lumbrelo pattered forward, his bare feet making little sound on the stones of the terrace. Now he is only an arm's length away from the medic. You have challenged me, O old man. Was it a question or a statement? Dane wondered. Why should I challenge you, Lumbrelo? To each raise its own magic. I come not to offer battle. His eyes held steady with a Cathcans. You have challenged me. Lumbrelo turned away and then looked back over his shoulder. The strength you depend upon may become a broken staff of water. Remember my words in the time when shadows become substance, and substance the time, the thinnest of shadows. Alright, sorry, that was just finishing up chapter 2 with that conversation there. Try to usually not interrupt them. I'm doing well, Aro, I'm doing well, thank you. Norton's got some interesting sci-fi books. I probably should read the whole series and probably do it chronologically or something. Sounds like a good idea, why don't I do it? To be fair, I've got something else planned for somewhat soon. What day is it even? 27th of April. So I know at least next weekend I've got another book or series kind of planned to be read. And there will be Alice in Wonderland that weekend, Some people may know why. I could keep that mainly on the down low. I don't care too much for lupper seal. Suorallista koekkoilta kuinka mennä. Oh, Jigglypuff and that stuff. How are ya? How are ya? Thank you so much for the 200 berries. Good day. How's your Tuesday been going? Hope it's been well. How have you been? How have you been? How's the new mic cover, by the way, guys? I don't know, it's kind of personal preference as well, I guess. But I honestly, I kind of love just these kind of sounds of a fluffy mic cover, just getting kind of, what do you even call it? Just going through it a little bit, scratching through it a little bit. And I asked them, but mainly just out of interest. I did actually check beforehand how it sounded alright for once. Hello, Voodoo, how do you do? Hope you're well. Why is my nose itchy? Oh, okay, I think that's good. I think I'm good. And to keep on track with time, I probably should keep on reading though. Cause there's 8 chapters and I've only done 2 so far. Oh boy, that's actually... I might not be able to finish this book today. Gonna have to see if the next 2 chapters take me an hour and a bit as well. But I might just end up with like an hour of Tongdrum today. And then try to do the rest of the book tomorrow. Gives me a good like incentive to stream tomorrow. You know. Since I have been having trouble with motivation for streaming and just other stuff. Mainly because of mental health stuff. No worries about that. Just my bother. So honestly, I think maybe I should do that. Cut the book in half. Do one half today and one half tomorrow. Sorry about that. That was loud. Should not have things like that lying around on my desk, making that much sound. Hope that wasn't too loud. But yeah, it also kind of puts the pressure off of getting stuff done in time today. Since I've got a bit of a dinner with family the end of the day. Pretty late though. Would have to be off that early. I've got a dinner planned with a little bit of family, just my uncle, his wife and my 2 nieces. Good, glad to hear it. I did see it spike, but I think I was also talking still, so I may not have seen it really on the volume either. Oh, and Misk, since you're lurking anyways, how is that thing going? The timer's still well on, because I see my lazy ass kinda wanted to like start early today, so I could raid over there. But I didn't really start that early, so I'm kinda like gonna need you guys to keep the timer going there so I can still rate that anyway. See, we just assume people are supportive and they hit the 12-hour cap. They should still have 3 hours, right? I think that'll be alright. Hello, Renai, how are you? How are you? Beautiful. Also, yeah, guys, I just shouted him out in chat, but I didn't talk about it. If you're looking for another lovely ASMR artist, go check out Dill. Speaking of narrators, though, actually, Aaron, I've not checked it out yet, but recently Netflix released a new series with David Attenborough. I don't know, he's not per se a bit of an idol, but I do love Sir David Attenborough. A lovely man, and he has a lot of passion for nature and the likes. I mean, honestly though, if I could, like actually, if I had more, probably would need more nature knowledge as well for that. If I had more knowledge in this field, I'd love to do that kind of work as well. Nice, rough. I hope I can sleep soonish enough so you can keep that sleep schedule on track. Alright, I think I'll jump back in the, or well, jump in the chapter 3, jump back into the book. So, jump back in the chapter 3 is a bit misleading, so I'm starting. At least move on a goalpost wasn't really finishing the book today. Just kinda make me chill a little bit. It's a bit more chill. And a good motivation to stream tomorrow. Sometimes I do have good ideas. Yeah, no, not quite. It's not really a good idea. It's more mini. I'll jump into chapter 3. You are truly a man of power. Tao shook his head in answer to the town bird from Asaki. Not so, sir. Your Limbrilo is a man of power. I drew upon his power, and you saw the result. Oh, deny it not. What we saw never walked this world. Tao slung a strap of a drill back over his shoulder. Sir, once men of your blood, men who bred your race hunted the elephant. They took his tusk for their treasure, feasted upon his flesh. Yes, and died beneath the trembling of his feet when they were unlucky or unwary. So there is that within you which can even now be awakened to remember Ondama in his might when he was king of the herd, and need fear nothing save the spear and cunning of small weak men. Limbrilo had already awakened your minds to see what he willed you to see. And how does he do this? Asked the other simply. Is it magic that we see not Limbrilo but a lion before him? He weaves a spell and drums with a chant by a suggestion his mind imposes upon yours, and having woven a spell, he cannot limit it to just a picture he suggests, if ancient racial memories raise none. I merely use the tool of Limbrilo to show you yet another picture your people once knew well, and in so doing made an enemy. Asaki stood before a rack of very modern weapons. Now snowy mere selection, a silver tube with a stock curve to fit a man's shoulder. Lumbrilo will not forget. Tau laughed shortly. No, but I have merely done as you wished, have I not, sir? I have focused on myself the enmity of a dangerous man, and now you hope I shall be forced in self-defense to remove him from your path. The Cathcan turned slowly, resting the weapon across his forearm. I do not deny that, spaceman. The matters here are indeed serious. Oh, they are serious. The Saki interrupted, speaking not only to Tau, but to the other of Warners as well. That what happens now may mean the end of the Kafka that I know. Lumbrilo is the most dangerous game I have faced in a lifetime as a hunter. He goes where he draws fangs, or else all that I am, all I have labored here to build, will be swept away. To preserve it, I will use any weapon. And I am now your weapon, which you hope will be as successful as that needler you are carrying. Tau laughed again without much humor. Let us hope I shall prove as effective. Alright, sorry. Saw some stuff in chat, but I didn't want to interrupt that conversation in the book. Nice, miss, nice. And hello, Astromac. How do you do? Hope you're well. And thank you for the follow. And hello, Alex. Welcome. Hope you're well. And nice, Misky. I mean, honestly, it's just fun to dabble. It's just fun to kind of mess around sometimes with some of that stuff, just to know, you know. Oh, Alex, I don't have a green screen. This similar-ish, I mean, it works to achieve the same goal, but this merely artificial intelligence, I'm pretty sure. I think they use AI for it, like machine learning. But yeah, I can show my... oh my, that is bright. I really need to get blackout curtains installed. But yeah, that's basically my bed behind me. I mean, honestly, the brightness might help with the AI cutting out the edges, since it's so contrasted with me. Although it does make this shoulder so much lighter than this one. Need to get blackout curtains anyways, side thing. Thank you for keeping me hydrated. Oh, nice, miss, nice. Give ASMR and go away. Didn't read that comment yet. And nice, just editing and stuff. I want to dabble a bit in editing, but I just don't have the time, so I kinda... it's weird, I kinda... whenever I do have the time / motivation to do productive things, I'm like, should kinda spend it just going live, I guess. It's a bit more efficient, I'd say. Yeah, it kinda does miss. That's, I originally had my camera flipped around the other way, but I figured it kinda matches it. Although, technically, if you think about it, the sun's supposed to be behind me, so I'd be pretty dark on the side, but aside from that, if you don't think too hard about it, it matches the sun in the background. Kind of. Anyhow, let me jump back into the book. Jellicoe moved out of the shadows. 'Twas just after dawn, and the greyness of the vanishing night still held in the corners of the armory. Deliberately he took his own stand before the arms racks and chose a short-barreled blaster. Only when its butt was cupped in his hand did he glance at his host. I wonder if any author would still write that like that to this day. When the butt of the blaster, of course, was cupped in his hand. Enjoy, miss, enjoy. Take care, good luck. I'd say if you want some input, let me know, but I don't have fine hearing, so honestly, I won't give good input, but enjoy the work, JD. I'm sure you're busy. There's always someone you're bemoaning for life, probably. Alright. We came guesting Nasaki. We've eaten salt and bread under this roof. On my body and my blood it is, returned the Cathkin grimly. I shall go down to the blackness of Samra before you do, if the flames of death are against me. From his bell he flipped loose his knife and over the hill to Jellicoe. My body for a wall between you and the dark, Captain, but also understand this to me. What I do now is greater than the life of anyone mad. Lumbrilo and the evil behind him must be ruled out. There was no trickery in my invitation. They stood eye to eye, equal in height, in authority of person, and that indefinable something which made them both masters in their own different worlds. Then Jellicoe's hand went out, his fingertip flicked the hilt of the bared blade. There was no trickery, he conceded. I know that your need was great when you came to the Queen. Since both the Captain and Tau appeared to accept the situation, Dane, not quite understanding her at all, was prepared to follow their lead, and for the moment they had nothing more in plan than to visit the Sobaru preserve. They went by Flither, Asagi, one of his hunter pilots, and the three from the Queen, lifting over the rim of mountains behind the fortress palace, and speeding north with the rising sun, a flaming ball to the east. Below the country was stark rocks and peaks, deep purple shadows marking the veins of crevices, but it was swiftly behind, and they were over a sea of green, many shades of green, with yellow, blue, even red, cutting into the general verdant carpet of treetops. Another chain of heights and then open land, swales of tall grass, already burned yellow by the steady sun. There was a river here, a crazy twisted stream, coiling nearly back upon itself at times. And hello, Crypto, how do you do? Once more broken land so ravished by prehistoric volcanic action that it was a grotesque nightmare of erosion, whirled outcrops and mesas. The Saki pointed to the east. There was a dark patch wiring out into a vast wedge. The swamp of Migra has not yet been explored. You could air map it, Tom again. The chief ranger was frowning. 4 flailers have been lost trying that. Come reports fill when they cross that last mountain ridge eastward. There is some sort of indifference, which we do not yet understand. Meagre as a place of death, later we may be able to travel along its fringe, and then we shall see. Now, he spoke through the pilot in his own tongue, and the flitter pointed up nose at an angle as they climbed over the highest peak they had yet seen in this mountainous land, to reach at last a country of open grass and dirt, with small forest stands. Jellicoe nodded approvingly. Subaru, Asaki assented. We shall go up through the northern end of the preserve. I wish to show you the route of the fossil. This is their nesting season, and the site is one you will long remember, but we shall take an eastern course. I have 2 ranger stations to check on the way. It was after they left the second station that the flitter swung farther out eastward, again climbing over a chain of heights, to sight one of the newly discovered wonders, the star for the last station for the port, a crater lake. And the flitter skimmed down across water which was a rich emerald and new, filling the crater from one rock wall to the other, with no beach at the foot of those precipitous cliffs. As the machine arose to clear the far wall, Dane tensed. One of his duties aboard the Queen was flitter pilot for planet-wise trips, and ever since they had taken off that morning, he had unconsciously flown the Kafkan pilot, anticipating each change or adjustment of the controls. Now he felt that sluggish response to the other's lift signal, and instinctively his own hand went out to adjust the power feed lever. Nice, Arthur, nice. Enjoy, take care, and I hope you get some lovely sleep. Was wondering, by the way, whether you know the works of Henry Norton. Feel like you might know her a bit. I think she's pretty well known for her stuff goes. They made the rise, were well above the danger of the cliff wall, but the machine was not responding properly. Dane did not need to watch the pilot's swiftly moving hands to guess that they were in trouble, and a slight concern deepened through something else as the flitter began to drop nose again. In front of him, Captain Jellicoe shifted uneasily, and Dane knew that he too was alerted. Now the pilot had plunged the power adjuster to the head against the control board, but the nose of the flitter acted as if it were overweighted or magnetically attracted by the rocks below. The best efforts of the men flying it could not keep it level. They were being drawn earthward, and all the pilot could do only delayed the inevitable crack-up. The Gathkin was turning the machine north to avoid what lay below, for here a long arm of the meagre swamp clasped about the foot of the mountain. And hello, Kako, how do you do? Hope you're well, and thank you for the follow. Also, I must say, just commenting out of place real quick on the book, I quite like the writing by Henry Norton here describing the planet and its sight, its nature. It's really quite interesting, lovingly to read. The chief ranger spoke into the mic for a community, while a pilot continued to fire against the pool which was bringing them down. Now the small machine was below the level of the volcanic peak which cradled the lake, and the mountain lay between them and the preserve. Asaki gave a muffled exclamation, slapped the combox, spoke more sharply into the mic. It was apparent he was not getting the results he wanted. Then, with a quick glance about, he snapped an order. Strap in. His Terran companions had already buckled the wire webbing belts intended to save them from crash shock. Dane saw the pilot push the button to release vent cushions. In spite of his pounding heart, a small fraction of his brain recognized the other's skill as the captain to a course to bring them down on a relatively level patch of sand and gravel. Also, hold on. Why does it still not do the command with... Maybe I didn't save correctly. Says I added a little description. There you go. It almost seems like it's running one version behind on that command. Weird. Sorry about that. Dane raised his hat from the shelter of his forward arm. The chief ranger was busy with a pilot who lay limply against the controls. Captain Jellicoe and Tau were already pulling at the buckles of their protective crash belts, but one look at the front of the flitter told Dane that it would not take through the air again without extensive repairs. Oh, yes, Jack. And they're updated to the right one this time. It would not take off without extensive repairs beforehand. Its nose was bent up and back, obscuring the forward view completely. However, the pilot had made a miraculously safe landing considering the terrain. 10 minutes later, the pilot restored to consciousness, and the gash in his hand bandaged, they held a council of war. The comm was off too. I did not have a chance to report before the crash. Asaki put the situation straightly, and our exploring parties had not yet mapped the site on the range. It has a bad reputation because of the swamp. Jellicoe measured the heights now to their west with resigned eyes. Looks as if we climb. Not here, the chief ranger corrected him. There is no passing through the Crater Lake region on foot. We must travel south along the edge of the mountain area until we do find a scalable way into the preserved region. Sorry, some motorcycles outside being noisy and annoying. Making my blood boil sometimes, but not much to do about them. Not here, the chief ranger corrected him. There is no passing through the Crater Lake region on foot. We must travel south along the edge of the mountain area until we do find a scalable way into the preserved region. You seem very certain we are not going to be rescued if we stay right here, Tao observed. Why? Because I'm inclined to believe that any flither that tries to reach us may run into the same trouble. Also, they have no conflicts on us. It will be at least a day or more before they will even begin to count as missing. And then they will have to haul northern portion of the preserve to comb. There are not enough men here. I can give you an order to the reason to medic. One of which may be sabotaged among the Jellicoe. The Saki shrugged. Perhaps I am on bluff from some quarters, but there may also be something fatal to flithers. Here's there is over Migra. We thought the Crater Lake district safely beyond the swamp influence, but it may not be so. Hello, Kobe, how do you do? Hope you're well. Good day, good day. But you took the chance of travelling over it, they thought, though he did not comment aloud. Was this another of the chief ranger's attempts to involve him in some private trouble of his own, though to deliberately smash up a flither and set them all afoot in his wilderness was a pretty interesting move. I'm doing well, Goey, thank you, thank you. Hope you're well as well. And hold on one sec. Let me just check. Just quickly gotta... Just quickly do something here real quick, one sec. Yeah, that is fine. Alright. Sorry about that. The Saki had started to unload emergency supplies from the flither. They each had a drill back for a pack. But when the pilot staggered over to pull out a set of stas belts and Jellicoe began to uncoil them, the chief ranger shook his hand. With a feeder beam shot off by the mountains, I fear those who no longer work. Jellicoe tossed one on the crumpled nose of the flither and punched its bottom with the tip of the needler barrel. Then he threw a rock at a dangling bough. The stone landed, taking the whole white protective band with it to the ground. The force field which should have warded off the missile was not working. And hello, Radio. Thank you for the follow. You're well, welcome, well. Oh, fine. Tao opened his drill bag to pack concentrates. Then he smiled crookedly. We aren't signed in for killing licenses, sir. We pay our fines if we are forced to shoot a hole through something that is spews the right of way. To Dane's surprise, the chief ranger laughed. You are off preserve now, Medic Tao. The rules do not cover a wildland, but I would suggest we now in the cave before nightfall. Lions, asked Jellicoe. Dane, remembering the black and white beast Lumbrilo had presented, did not enjoy the thought. They had his gaze went down from man to man, checking weapons. The needle the Saki carried, and another the pilot had slung by its carrying strap over his shoulder. Tau and the captain both were armed with blasters, and he had a fire ray and a four-blade, both considered small armor, but deadly enough, perhaps, even to dampen a lion's enthusiasm for the chase. Lions, gra, rock apes, Sasaki fastened the mouth of his trail bag. All were hunters, or killers. The gra sent out scouts, and they are big and formidable enough to have no enemies. Lions hardened with intelligence and skill, rock apes are dangerous, but luckily they cannot keep silent when they scent their prey, and so give one warning. As they climbed up slope from the filler, Dane, looking back, saw that perhaps Sasaki was right in his belief that they had better try to help themselves rather than wait for rescue. Putting aside the excuse of fitting another crack up, the wrecked filler made no outstanding mark on the ground. The higher they climbed, the less it could be distinguished from the tumble of rocks about it. Oh, Dale, nice. Anything special you are doing? Vacation or the likes, or just a normal business trip or whatever? Enjoy your road. Good luck with the plane if you're anxious of plane flights. And sleep well in the meantime. He had lagged a little behind, and when he hurried to catch up, found Jellicoe standing with his distance, fishing lenses to his eyes, directing them toward that shadow marking the swamp. As the younger spaceman reached him, the captain lowered the glasses and spoke. "Take your knife." Thorson and hold it close to the rock over there. He pointed to a rounded, black knob protruding from the soil little off their path. Dane obeyed, only to have the blade jerk in his hand, and when he loosened his hold in amazement, the steel slapped tight against the stone. Magnetic. Yes, which might explain our crash. Also this. Jellicoe held out a field compass to demonstrate that the needle had gone completely mad. "We can use the mountain range itself for a guide," Dane said with more confidence than he felt. "True enough, but we may have trouble when we head west again." Jellicoe let the lenses swing free from their cord about his neck. "If we were there on purpose," his mouth tightened and the old blaster burn on his cheek stretched as did his jaw set. "Then someone is going to answer a lot of questions, and fast." "The Chief Ranger, sir." "I don't know, I just don't know." The captain grunted as he adjusted his pack and started on. Alright, let me just quickly check something now. What did I just time out there? I mean, okay, it's not particularly a bad message, I don't think, but like, don't think this to please me. If fortune had filled them earlier, she smiled on them now. Sasaki discovered a cave before sundown, located not too far from a mountain stream. The ranger sniffed the air before that dark opening as the hunter piled Cher's equipment and crept forward on his hands and knees, his head up and his nostrils expanding as he, too, tested the scent from the cave mouth. Scent, it was closer to a stench, and one ripe enough to turn the stomach of an off-waller. But the hunter glanced back over his shoulder and nodded reassuringly. Lion, but old, not here within 5 days at least. Well enough, and even old lion scent will keep away rock apes. We'll clean some and then we can rest undisturbed, was his superior's comment. The cleaning was easy for the brittle bedding of dried bracken and grass the bees had left burned quickly, cleansing with both fire and smoke. When they raked the ashes out with branches, Asaki and Nimari brought in handfuls of leaves, which they crumbled and threw on the floor, spreading an aromatic odour which banished most of the foulness. Dane at the stream with the canteens to fill chanced upon a small pool where was a spread of smooth yellow sand, knowing well the many weird booby traps one might stumble into on a strange world. The Terran prospected carefully, stirring up the sand with a stick, scything not so much as a water insect or a curious fish. He pulled off his boots, rolled up his breeches and waded in. The water was cool and refreshing, though he dared not drink it until the purifier was added. Then, with the filled canteen knotted together by their straps, he put on his boots and climbed to the cave where Tao waited with water tablets. Half an hour later, Dane sat cross-legged by the fire, turning a spit strung with 3 small birds. Asaki had brought in. 1 foot closer to the heat began to tingle, and he seized of his boot, his cramped toes suddenly seeming to have doubled in size. He was staring wide-eyed at the same toes above the rat, and increasingly painful to the touch. When Imani squatted beside him, inspecting his foot closely, and ordered him to take off his other boot. What is it? Dane found that shedding the other boot was a minor torture in itself. Imani was cutting tiny splinters, hardly thicker than a needle from a stick. Sandworm, latex and flesh. You burn them out or you have bad food. Burn them out, Dane echoed, and swallowed as he watched Imani advance a splinter to the fire. Burn them, the Kafkan repeated firmly. Burn tonight, hurt them tomorrow, all well soon, no burn very bad. Dane ruefully prepared to pay the consequences of his first brush with the unpleasant surprises Kafka had to offer. And that's light nightmare fuel ends off chapter 3. Let me take a quick break before chapter 4. I had at a 2-hour mark here, and I'll be right back in a sec. Let me turn this back on. Maybe put the water sound a bit louder. I'll be right back. One sec. Alright, back again. Turn that back off, or that back down a little bit. Hope you're all still well and nice and cozy. Let me quickly check a thing or two. Oh my. See. I was planning on raiding the staff. The other she's probably still alive by the time I end in about an hour. But wow, we're at some fewer numbers, so I feel kinda puny raiding into maybe I just should. I don't know. Raiding up always feels a bit. I don't know. But alright, let me jump straight on into chapter 4. See where that takes me time-wise. And then swapping over to Tundrum for a little bit as well. Leave the rest of the book for tomorrow. Good incentive for me to stream tomorrow. Gonna have to see now. Can I actually finish that many chapters of the book in the time I've got tomorrow? We'll see, we'll see. Gonna have to see how it works out time-wise. Usually like, I want to stream in my evenings, but I've got stuff here usually at 9 PM. And then dinner is anywhere between 6 and 7, and my work usually ends around 4:30 PM. So it's kind of like, in between work and dinner I have a bit of time. In between dinner and stuff later on in the evening I have a bit of time. But unless I somehow push like dinner down to like my work and or dinner down or up to very later times, it's kind of weird planning a stream in there. Which is why I haven't been live much work days, by the way. Anyhow, let me jump into chapter 4. Hope you're all still nice and cozy. Dane regards throbbing feet morosely. The Mani's operations with burning splinters had been hard to take, but he had endured them without disgracing himself before the Cathkins, who appeared to regard such a mishap as just another travel incident. Now, with Tao's self-soothing the worst of the after effects, the Terran was given time to reflect upon his own stupidity, and the fact that he might now prove a drag on the whole party the next morning. Well, that's queer. They was startled out of the contemplation of his misery to see the medic on his knees before that row of canteens, the phial of water purifier held to the firelight for a closer inspection. What's the matter? We must have hit with a pretty hard thumb back there, so all these pills or powder have to get about the portion to act. With the tip of his knife blade, Tao scraped a tiny amount of pill fragments into each waiting canteen. That should do it, but if the water tastes a little bitter, don't let them bother you. Bitter water, Dane thought, trying to flex his still swollen toes, was going to be the least of his worries in the morning, but he determined that his boot should go on at daybreak, and he would keep on his feet as long as the others did, no matter how much it cost him. And when they set out shortly after daybreak, wanting to move as far as they could before the heat hours when they must rest, the going was not too bad. Dane's feet were tender to the touch, but he could shuffle along at the tail of the procession, with only Nimari playing rear guard behind them. Jungle lay before them, and bush knives began to swing, clearing their path. Dane took his turn with the rest of the chore, thankful for the busyness of cutting their way through that mass of greenery, slower him to a pace he could match, if it were in comfort and by willpower. But the sandworms were not the only troubles one could encounter on Kafka. Within an hour, Captain Jellicoe stood swearing and speaking his mind freely, in the native tongues of 5 different planets, while Tau and Namani worked as a team with skinning knives. They were not flaying the spacemen, but they came near to that in places, as they worried a choice selection of 3 thorns out of his arms and shoulder. The captain had been unfortunate enough to trip and fall into the embrace of a very unfriendly bush. Dane inspected a fallen tree for evidence of inimical wildlife, and then rested his blanket between him and it as a protecting cushion before he sat down. These trees were not a towering giant with true forest, but rather oversized bushes which had been made into walls by twined vines. Brilliant bursts of flowers were splotches of vivid colour, and the attendant insect life was altogether too abundant. Dane tried to tally his immunity shots and hoped for the best. At a moment he wondered why anyone would want to visit Kafka, that alone pays an astronomical sum for the privilege. Though he could also guess that a plush safari arranged for a paying client might be a run on quite different lines from their own present trip. How could a tracker find his way through this, with the compasses playing crazy tricks into the bargain? Jellicoe knew that the compasses were off, yet the captain had followed Rasaki's lead without question, so he must trust the ranger's forest craft. But Dane wished they were clear on the mountainside again. Time had little meaning in the green gloom, but when they worked through to meet the rock walls again, the sun said it was well into the after part of the day. They sheltered for a breather under the drooping limbs of one of the last trees. Amazing, Jellicoe, his torn arm in a sling across his chest, came down the slope from the higher point where he had been using the distance lenses. We struck straight across and cut off about 10 miles by the jungle jog. Now I believe all that I've heard of your people's ability to cross wilderness and not lose their build in the riding beams, sir. With the compasses out, I'll admit I've been nourishing a healthy set of doubts. Saki laughed. Captain, I do not question your ability to flit from world to world, or how you have learned to set up trade with strange humans and non-humans alike. Through each his own mystery. In Kafka, every boy before he becomes a man must learn to navigate the jungle, with no instruments to help him, only what lies in the air. He touched his thumb to his forehead. So, through generations, we've developed our homing instincts. Those who did not also did not live through father others, who might have been the same lack. We are hounds who can run on a scent, and we are migrators, who have better than a compass within our own bodies. Now we take to climbing again. Towser fade away before them critically. Not in this hour. That sun on the upward slopes can cook a man's skin worry to touch any rock. We wait. Waiting for the Cathkins was a chance to sleep. They curled up on their light blankets. But the three spacemen were restless. Dane would have liked to have taken off his boots, but feared he could not replace them, and he could tell them from the way. The captain shifted his position. The Jellicoe was in pain too. Her toe sat quietly, staring at nothing Dane could see, unless it was a tall rock thrust out of the slope like a finger pointing skyward. Hi, Christopher, I'm not whispering at all. You have a hearing defect, by chance. You seem to be mistaken there. What colour is that rock? Surprised, Dane gave the stony finger closer attention. To him it was the same colour as most of the other rocks, a weathered black which in certain lights appeared to carry a brownish film. Black or maybe dark brown. Tao looked past him to Jellicoe. The captain nodded. I'd agree with that. Tao cupped his hands over his eyes for a moment, and his lips moved as if he were counting. Then he took his hands away and stared up slope. Dane watched the Merrick's eyelids blink slowly. Nothing but black or brown, Tao pressed. No, Jellicoe supported his injured arm upon his knees, leaning forward as intent upon a designated rock, as he expected it to assume some far more startling appearance. Queer, Tao said to himself, and then added briskly, "You're right, of course, the sun can play tricks with one's eyes." Dane continued to watch the finger rock. Maybe strong sunlight could play tricks, but he could see nothing odd about the rough lump. And since the captain asked no questions of Tao, he did not quite want to either. It was perhaps a half hour later, and the Merrick and Jellicoe had both succumbed to the quiet, the heat and their own fatigue, when Dane did sight a movement up slope. The throbbing in his feet was worse now, he had nothing to occupy his mind but his own troubles, and he was sitting facing the finger rock. Was that what Tao had seen earlier, that quick movement around the side of the rough pillar? But if so, why the question of colour? There it was again, and now, centering all his attention on one point, the Terran picked out the outline of a hat grotesque enough to be something conjured out of Lambrilo's sorcerer's imagination. Had Dane not seen its like among the 3D prints in Captain Jellicoe's collection, he would have believed that his eyes were playing tricks. It was a bullet-shaped hat, embellished by 2 outsized prick ears, the hair tough, pointed tips of which projected well above the tip of a skull. Round eyes were set deeply in sunken pits. The mouth was a swinish snout from which lowered a purple tongue, though the rest of that gargoyle hat was very close in colour to the rock against which it all rested. Sounds like you're in the wrong place, Grapt. Since here people are just chilling, probably not looking for a conversation right now. Dane had known domes that the rock ape was spying upon the small camp, having heard tales of those semi-intelligent animals, the most intelligent native creatures of Kafka, most of which were concerned with their more malignant characteristics. Dane was alarmed that Lurker could be an advanced scout of some pack, and a pack of rock apes, if able to surprise their prey, were formidable opponents. The Saki stirred, sat up, and that round and above turned to follow the chief ranger's every move. Above by the finger rock to the right, Dinkapra's voice close to a whisper. When he saw the sudden constriction of muscle across Kafkan's bare shoulders, he knew that the other had heard and understood. And they'll do randomly what they do. Thank you for a follow. Hope you're well. Only if Asaki had spotted the rock ape, he did not betray his knowledge. The Kafkan got lively to his feet. Then one of those feet stirred Nimari into the instant wakefulness of a wilderness-trained man. And I'll do you. Thank you for the follow as well. And thank you for keeping me hydrated. Probably a good idea. Dane slid his hand about the bole of the tree and touched Jellicoe, which the captain's grey eyes opened with a similar awareness. The Saki picked up his needler, weapon in hand. He whirled and fired almost in one connected movement. It was the fastest shot Dane had ever seen. The gargoyle had lifted away from the rock, and then turned to one side as his body, somehow faintly obscene in its resemblance to the human form, fell away, to sprawl limply down slope. Tough than that rock ape had not had a chance to give tongue. There came a cry from above, a coughing, deep-throated hawking. Down the steep incline bumped a round white ball, bouncing past the tumbled carcass of the ape, sailing up into the air, to strike and burst open a few feet away. Back with one arm, Asaki sent Jellicoe, his nearest neighbor, tumbling back into the jungle. Then the chief ranger pumped a stream of needle rays into the remains of the ball. A shrill, sweet humming arose as red motes, vivid as molten copper in the sunlight, climbed on wings beating too fast to be seen. The debris of the nest smoked into nothing, but no needle ray could hope to stop all the poisonous army issuing forth from it, fighting mad to seek any warm-blooded creature within scenting distance. The men threw themselves into the brush, rolling in the thick mold of the vegetable decay on the ground, rubbing its moist plaster over their bodies in frantic haste. A red-hot fire, far worse than any of the splinter torment Dane had undergone the night before, pierced between his shoulders. He rolled on his back, shoving himself along, both to kill the fire wasp and coat the sting with cooling mold. Cries of pain told him that he was not the only sufferer, as all dug hands into the slimy stuff under them and slapped it over their faces and heads. Apes, their half-shout got through to alert the men on the jungle floor. True to their nature, the rock apes, now streaming downhill, were coughing their challenge, advertising their attack, and it was only that peculiarity of their species which saved their intended victims. The apes came forward, partially stood up, at a shambling run. The first two bulls, close to 6 feet, went down under fire from a soggy's needler. A third somehow escaped, swerving to the left, and came bounding at an angle toward Dane. The Terran jerked free his force blade as that swine's snout split wide to show the greenish tusks, and the horrible stench of the creature's body made him gasp. A talon's paw clawed at him eagerly, slipped from his slime-covered body, just as he brought the force blade up. Foul breath coughed in his face, and he stumbled back as the heavy body of the ape crashed against him, cut in half by the weapon. To Dane's sickened horror, the paw still clawed at him, the fangs still gnashed as he rolled free of the mangled body and somehow got to his feet. The roar of a blaster, of two blasters, drowned out the clamour of the apes as Dane drew his fire ray, set his shoulders against the tree bow and prepared to fight it out. He fired, saw a smaller and more nimble enemy go down, screeching. Then there were none left on their saggy feet. Thus, some on the ground dragged themselves forward, still striving to reach the men. Dane slipped a fire wasp from his leg. He was glad of the support of the tree at his back, as the smell of the ape's blood drenching him from chest level down, and the mess on the ground made his stomach churn. Hello, Indica, long time no see indeed. Hope you're well, hope you're well. When he could control his retching, he straightened. To his relief, he saw that all the others were on their feet, apparently unharmed. But Tau, catching sight of the younger spaceman, gasped and started for him. Dane, what did they do? His junior laughed a little hysterically. Not mine. He swore with a handful of grass in his bloody breeches and blundered on into the sunlight. The Mari found him a foam-flecked stream below a miniature falls where a swift current prevented the lurking of sandworms. They stripped eagerly, cleaning first themselves and then their foul clothing, while Tau tended the wealth of fire wasp stings. There was little he could do to relieve the swelling and pain, until a soggy produced a reed-like plant, which, chopped in sections, yielded a sticky purple liquid that dried on the skin as a tarn gum, the native remedy. So glued and plastered they climbed away from the water, and prepared to spend the night in a hollow between two leaning rocks. Certainly not as snug as the cave, but a fortress of sorts. And the credit happy space hoppers pay a fortune for an outing like this, Tau commented bitterly, hunching well forward, so that a certain stung portion of his anatomy would not come in contact with the rock beneath him. Well, hardly for this, Jellicoe replied, and Dane saw the Mari grin one-sidedly, his other cheek puffed and painted sticky purple. You do not always encounter apes and fire wasps in the same day, supplied the chief ranger. Also guests at the brochures wear stas belts. Jellicoe snorted. I don't think you'll get any repeats from your clients otherwise. What will we meet tomorrow? A herd of growl stampede, or something even more small and deadly. The Mani got up and walked a little way from the rock shelter. He turned down slope and Dane saw his nostrils expand as they had when he had investigated the cave. Something is dead, he said slowly. A very large something, or else. As Saki strode down to join his men, he gave a curt nod and the Mani scattered on down the mountainside. What is it? Jalago asked. It might be many things, there is one I hope it is not, was the chief ranger somewhat evasive reply. I will hunt the Lambla. There was a fresh spoor at the stream. He set off along their back trail to return a half hour later, the body of his skill slung across one shoulder. He was skinning it when the Mani trotted back. Well, deathbit, supplied the hunter. Poachers, Yalago inquired. When the Mani nodded, Saki continued his task, but there was a glint in his dark eyes as he butchered with sure and expert strokes. Then he glanced at a shadow extending beyond the rocks. I too would see, he told the Mari. Jellicoe arose and deigned interest that followed. Some 5 minutes later, none of them needed the native keenness of smell to detect the presence of some foulness ahead. The odour of corruption was almost tangible in the sultry air, and it grew worse until they stood on the edge of a pit. Dane retreated hurriedly. This was as bad as the battlefield of the rock apes, but a captain and the two Cathcans stood calmly assessing the slaughter left by the hide poachers. Glem Gra Undra, Jellicoe commented. Tusks and hides, the full line of trade stuff. As Saki, his expression bleak, stepped back from the pit. They or calves, or ones, females altogether. They kill wantonly and leave rows they do not choose to pelt. Trill, the Mari pointed eastward, leads to Migra swamp. The swamps, Asagi was shaken. They must be mad. Or know more about this country than your men do, Jellicoe corrected. If poachers can enter Migra, then we can follow. But not now, Dame protested silently. Certainly Asagi did not mean that they were to track outlaws into swamps the Cathcan had already labeled and explored death traps. And that will mark the end of chapter 4. I was about to say 5, but 5 is the next chapter, the one I was looking at. And then just saw a message on Discord. I guess I am too late on reading stuff. I should have started streaming earlier today. But well, that's alright. And speaking of ending though, I probably will be ending soonish. Just gonna do a bit of tongue drum. Leave the rest of the book for tomorrow. There's 4 chapters left, which I think are a little bit smaller in size than the current ones. Not by much, but a little bit, just judging from where what's the thing even called? The thing that indicates how far you've scrolled on the page. Judging on where that is. I think that is a little bit over half, so I think actually the chapters they seem to be pretty well split up in size as well. And Quackoonek, thank you for a follow, hope you're well. Good day, good day. me just see. And hello, Devorich. How are ya? How are ya? Thank you for a follow. You're well. And alright, let me just set up real quick for a bit of tongue run. Maybe about 30-ish minutes. 30-ish minutes. Wow. I can talk. I know how to. I swear. So, one sec. I'm gonna mute for now. Alright, let me just see what is good volume-wise as well. Prefer to be a bit further away from the mic, so the tongue drum is it's a bit quieter. So I put up again, so I'm about on the same volume as normal, even though I'm further away. Let me just do a quick sound check. Sounds alright. Actually, about the same volume to a bit higher than me. Okay, that is good. Could always get closer to the mic. Also, I guess I can talk a little bit about the exciting thing I recently ordered. Been saving up for it for a bit, and I need to save up a little bit more to recover from buying it as well. But I ordered a hand pen, which should be coming sometime within the next 2 months, honestly. Not too much to celebrate just yet, but I'm looking quite forward to it. Though I shouldn't get too excited just yet. Got a bit of a ways to wait. Alright, I think that might be a good time for me to start looking for someone to read. I'm just gonna have a quick little look. No ballad lives, honestly. Unless anyone has any other specific suggestions, I think I'll just read Bell a bit. Play a little bit longer version. Just gonna real quick to loudly sit back in my chair. Thank you for the follow. Hope you're well. come. Getting quite hot in this room by now, having all the extra lighting on for this one. So I think I'm gonna go start the raid. Thank you all for having been here today. Let me just start the raid and then Let the timer run out, back to a bit more tongue drum. And I am just gonna raid battle, I guess. I was probably live for a good bit more. Let me get my hat set on for that, just make sure I don't really miss much. So, gotta start at the rate. Just let the timer run out. Thank you all for having been here. Oh, that's how the ride ends. There's always another day. I'm thinking of tomorrow, probably. I wanna finish the book I was reading today, tomorrow. The last 4 chapters. I had a lovely stray months, thank you, thank you. And a lovely, lovely day to you as well. And big thank you to everyone that showed up today. Even those that happened to show up near the end of the day. Take care all, take care.